Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show, and today we are going to deal with the most pressing topic facing Star Citizen today. And that topic is, which ship in the Star Citizen universe best approximates the Millennium Falcon? Now, it's important to state at the beginning that we're going to be judging this on a few different factors. We can't judge it, strictly speaking, on straight dimensions, because there are a lot of ships that are close from one perspective or another, but none of them really kind of mesh up all that well in terms of overall dimensions. And I think that one critical factor in judging this is the personality of the ship. Is this the type of ship that you would see having these types of adventures? A ship that would be exciting to fly, something that kind of has a little bit of that ugly only a mother could love type thing, something rugged, something a little bit beat up, but something that still looks awesome. And so let's get started. Now, we start, of course, with the obvious choice, the Constellation. This was described as the Millennium Falcon of the Star Citizen universe, though it is longer than the Millennium Falcon, being at 60 plus meters long, whereas the Millennium Falcon, depending on your sources, is about 34-35 meters long. However, in truth, the Constellation really just doesn't have a lot of personality in its design. It's kind of bland. In a way, it almost seems like it's the end result of a tug of war between two people, someone with exciting ideas and someone with safe ideas, and neither one really getting their way. It in the end, it really doesn't seem like it has any real personality. It just seems bland and boring as a spaceship. I mean, one of the things that, the Millennium Falcon has is it looks rugged. It looks like it's going out there and it's going to be having like crazy adventures and going on wild rides and all of that. Whereas the Connie, I mean, it doesn't really embody adventure and excitement. In truth, it really is not so much a Millennium Falcon as it is a champagne Chevy Malibu with a no fear sticker in the rear window. It's really kind of bland and not very exciting. Now, next up is a ship that I think is kind of obvious. It's the ship, of course, that's being flown in this video right now, and that is the Drake Cutlass Black. Now, the Drake Cutlass Black, of course, has gotten a bit of a rework recently, and it is much larger than it originally was. It has a greater cargo capacity, and even though it does ultimately fall short of the dimensions of the Millennium Falcon by about 10 meters, roughly, it still, I think, has that kind of rugged personality and that kind of outlaw smuggler feel that the Millennium Falcon does. Ultimately, I think almost a little too well and a little too neatly put together to really compare. But then again, if this ship has been through as much as the Millennium Falcon has, I'm sure the appearance would be a little bit more appropriate. Ultimately, however, I think that once again, the Drake Cutlass's size is what limits it. It doesn't seem like it really would have these kind of galaxy-spanning adventures. It doesn't seem like it would be able to get very far, and is more of a local ship. Of course, you will be able to travel great distances with this ship. You'll just have to stop and fuel up a lot more. And it is a very, very close ship, and I really like it, but ultimately, even in the interior, it feels a little bit small to be kind of the Millennium Falcon's spiritual successor in Star Citizen. Very close, but ultimately I feel that it falls short. Next up is a ship dimensions-wise and armaments-wise I think very closely approximates the Millennium Falcon. Just kidding, they'll never build it. Seriously though, one of the considerations when we were looking at the previous ship, the Drake Cutlass, was that it was too small. And I don't think that really, we can't really go strictly by size as a comparison. That's why we talk about things like the spirit of the ship or the idea. And so I want to throw in the Drake Caterpillar. Now the Drake Caterpillar is probably far too large, though it does seem that if the Star Citizen universe worked on the sort of World War II fighters in space type physics, then this could possibly be in there. I mean, if you could take the Caterpillar and take the 4 segments out of the forward section and just put the nose section of the Caterpillar on the end of it, I think that this would be a ship that would be worthy of consideration, if not a front runner and a winner. If there was such a version of the Caterpillar, I think that it would be the shoo-in for the Millennium Falcon of the Star Citizen universe. Now, if we were willing to look at the Caterpillar, then there's a ship with similar dimensions I think we should also address as well, and that is the Aegis Hammerhead. Now, the Aegis Hammerhead is probably something that is going to be, overgunned to be a contender for kind of that Millennium Falcon type slot. And it is certainly a big ship, but if you look at something like the Constellation, that thing is 60 plus meters. This is 115. It's bigger, but it still kind of has that right personality in terms of, styling, speed, aggressiveness. It does feel right, though ultimately I think just a little too big, but very, very close. This really was a difficult choice with the Hammerhead. It really, really was, because even though it is too big, it's kind of like a bit of a cargo ship. It has less capacity, slightly less capacity than a Cutlass Black, but it's kind of like the cargo ship that you would want to take into maybe the less reputable area. A cargo ship that you might take into dangerous space to carry cargoes that may not be all that substantial in volume, but very substantial in value. And that's what kept kind of pushing it back into contention. Though I think that something like the Cutlass is obviously going to be easier to get into maybe certain hard to reach locations, the Hammerhead represents something that would be less likely to get messed with while it's doing those things. And so I kind of kept debating this point back and forth with myself, going, I can see it here, but then again, it always came down to it's too big. But depending on what you plan to buy or carry with it, it could be really, really good too. And finally, a ship with a face only a mother could love, the Freelancer Miss. Now, the Freelancer Miss is, of course, the militia version of the Freelancer cargo ship. It features a very impressive array of weapons and missiles. It's ugly, but it's the right kind of ugly, if you know what I mean. It certainly has the personality. It has the firepower, I think, to come in, once again, just a little bit on the small size, but it has that adaptability. It can suit different roles, be it combat or cargo carrying. It's a respectable ship in terms of armament, in terms of cargo capacity. It's probably one of the more solid contenders that we've gone over today. In fact, in the end, when I was trying to make my choice, it really all kind of came down to 2 ships, and the Freelancer Miss was one of those ships. Even though, as many of you are aware, I ultimately despise the appearance of this ship, the aesthetics of it, the utility of it cannot be denied. The armaments, the firepower cannot be denied. Ultimately, I was left with two choices, and neither of which I could pick. One was too small, one was too big. One seemed to be just right on firepower, one seemed to be a little too heavy on the firepower. But both ships, I think, are going to be very respectable and very tough in the Star Citizen universe, and something very much that the owners of those ships will be very pleased with. One of them especially if CIG can kind of nail down turret gameplay. So, for the aspiring smuggler on a budget, in my opinion, it is the Freelancer miss. For the smuggler just starting out with just a Wookiee companion, this, I think, is really the Millennium Falcon of the Star Citizen universe. It's ugly and it's kind of rough looking, but in the right way. It does have some limitations, it does have some problems, it does have that terrible cockpit view, but ultimately a decent, solid ship. However, for the aspiring smuggler who's probably already made it or isn't all that budgetarily limited, the Aegis Hammerhead is, I think, the ideal for smuggling in unfriendly space, hauling cargoes that are small in value or small in volume but high in value. I think this is the ship for someone who's willing to take a few more risks, and a ship that also says, if you're gonna come after me, don't come light. So, kind of the more affluent smuggler's Millennium Falcon. Anyways, that's my opinion on the matter. You can leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.